there was unfair treatment in my mom's house.
I never imagined I'd have to say this, but my mom never loved us the way the world thought she did. That shocking confession came from Hannah Gosselin, the quietest daughter of the once famous family of 8 that America couldn't stop watching. With just that one line, the image of supermom Kate Gosselin, the woman praised for years on TV, completely shattered. Suddenly, that perfect family picture everyone believed in cracked wide open, revealing dark truths no one ever saw coming. Hannah said their home wasn't really a loving household. It was a set built for cameras. There were tears behind every smile, scripts placed by their beds each morning, and cameras mounted on walls to catch every perfect moment. Behind it all, she claimed, was a mother who didn't want to raise her kids. She wanted to run a brand made from them. Then came Colin's strange disappearance, the family breaking into 3 rival sides, and the shadow of a man who never left Kate's side. It all started to look like a twisted drama no one signed up for. The audience had no clue what was happening off camera. But now, Hannah was done keeping secrets. She wanted the world to know the truth. She began by saying, "My mom didn't fight for custody because she loved us. She fought because she needed us for her career." That statement hit like a bomb. When Hannah shared those words in a private talk, it was like watching someone slice through the shiny poster of the perfect family America once adored. Let's rewind to 2009, when Jon and Kate Gosselin dragged each other to court in front of millions. Back then, viewers thought they were watching a brave mom trying to protect her 8 kids from a careless husband. But Hannah's version flips that story upside down. She says it wasn't about love or protection. It was about power, fame, and control. Nothing was ever what it seemed behind that smiling TV family. Very few people realized that for Hannah, that day in court was just the first act of a perfectly staged show. Reporters filled every inch of the courtroom aisles. Cameras all zoomed in on the familiar blonde star from TLC, Kate Gosselin. She wept on the stand, talking about sleepless nights, the burden of raising 8 kids alone, and the pain of being left behind by Jon. It was emotional, it was raw, and the media ate up every second of it. Headlines screamed, "The betrayed mother," and "Kate fights for her kids." Newspapers painted her as the tragic heroine of a family torn apart. But behind those headlines sat little Hannah, quiet and watchful, seeing a very different story unfold. She noticed how her mother's tears weren't just for the court, they were for the cameras, too. Every time Kate stepped into the courthouse hallway, her eyes sparkled, not from sadness, but from the flashing lights waiting for her. Hannah remembered her mom pausing right in front of the courthouse logo, posing naturally so the background looked flawless. She knew exactly where to stand, Hannah later said. It wasn't chaos, it was choreography. Every tear, every pause, every look, it all seemed planned.
I mean, controversy-wise, I never cheated on my wife or anything like that. You know, the network created like a narrative, and then I just couldn't say anything about it. And then after a while, everyone just stuck to that narrative. Yeah. So I just kind of learned to live with it. My family and my friends knew what the real truth, and I live in my hometown, so it's so much easier to navigate through that. And who to trust and who not to trust.
When the verdict came down, the court granted Kate full custody of all 8 children. To the public, it looked like justice had been served. A strong mother finally getting her chance to rebuild her family. But to Hannah, that victory felt cold. She said her mother's reaction wasn't the tearful joy everyone imagined. There were no hugs, no crying, no relief. Instead, as soon as the courtroom doors shut and the cameras disappeared, Kate picked up her phone. Her tone was calm, almost businesslike. "We won," she said. "The show can continue." It was in that moment Hannah realized their family wasn't healing. It was just going back on air. Hannah has never been able to forget those words. "We won! The show can continue!" They didn't sound like relief from a mother who just got her kids back. They sounded like a business deal being sealed. From that day on, their Pennsylvania house stopped being a home. It turned into a full-blown film set. At first, it seemed harmless, just a few cameras here and there, one in the kitchen, one in the living room, and a couple handheld ones carried by the crew. But soon, the cameras multiplied like they were taking over the place. Hannah said she couldn't even walk from her room to the hallway without crossing a lens staring right at her. There was one mounted high by the staircase, another aimed outside the bathroom. There were eyes everywhere. And to Hannah, those eyes didn't belong to a film crew. They belonged to her mother and to the show that ruled their lives. Mornings in the Gosselin home didn't start with birds chirping or sunlight peeking through the curtains. No, they started with a schedule, a piece of paper taped right next to the bed. To Hannah, it wasn't a morning plan. It was an emotional script. It went like this: 6 a.m. Wake up! 6:15, brush teeth, comb hair, put on matching pre-selected outfits. 6:30, go downstairs, get ready for breakfast. 7 o'clock, cameras rolling. Start filming. But it wasn't just about sticking to a schedule. Along with the times came silent rules everyone understood. If today was marked as a happy day, the kids had to smile no matter what. If it was a cute chaos day, they could laugh and play, but never cry. Every emotion had to match the script, not how they really felt. Some mornings, Hannah said there'd be a handwritten note from Kate sitting on the kitchen counter, a short message. But it always set the tone for the entire day. Everything, down to the tiniest detail, was part of the performance. On some mornings, the note from Kate read, "Today's episode is about family unity. No fighting, no whining. Remember to be cheerful, cheerful." But that cheerfulness wasn't real. It was rehearsed. The smiles weren't for joy. They were for the cameras and the ratings. Every laugh, every kind word, every giggle was part of the act. Even something as simple as breakfast turned into a production. Hannah still shudders thinking about those mornings. The kids would sit around the table with stacks of pancakes and glasses of milk, laughing on cue while the cameras rolled. Then, just when they thought they were done, Kate or the director would rewatch the footage and frown. Again. "This time, look at Mommy more," Kate would say. And just like that, everything started over. Fresh plates, new drinks, and the same fake conversation repeated until it looked perfectly real on camera. There were mornings when Hannah said she had breakfast 3 times in a row just to capture the perfect family vibe. But by the third take, she wasn't full from pancakes. She was full of exhaustion. That feeling of being fed up stuck with her far longer than any meal could. Things got even darker when emotions didn't fit the script. If a child looked tired, distracted, or worst of all, started crying, Kate would instantly call out, "Cut!" But it wasn't to comfort them. It was to correct them. The show couldn't afford real emotion unless it looked cute on screen. Hannah remembered one moment vividly. Her sister Leah dropped a spoon. It clanged against the floor, startling her. Leah burst into tears, covering her face as the cameras kept rolling. And then came Kate's voice, sharp and cold. "Cut!" The room froze. Kate looked at her crying daughter and said sternly, "Do you think people want to see that?" That sentence, Hannah said, hit harder than any punishment. It was the moment she realized their childhood wasn't being lived. It was being filmed. "A child crying for no reason? Wipe your tears. We're doing it again." That's what Hannah remembered hearing echo through the kitchen that day. Leah, still shaking, sat back down, forced to swallow her tears and smile like nothing happened. The pancakes were reset, the cameras rolled, and breakfast started all over again, as if those tears had never touched the table. When the episode aired later, viewers saw nothing but a picture-perfect family laughing over breakfast. That moment of pain, it vanished into TV magic. Day after day, their lives played out like a never-ending live-action script. There was no space for real life, no sickness, no bad moods, no exhaustion. If one of the kids couldn't keep up with the filming schedule, the fix wasn't rest, it was replacement. Another sibling would be pushed forward to fill the frame while the tired one disappeared into the background. But what terrified Hannah most wasn't the cameras. It was the creeping sense that she didn't own her own life anymore. She said she belonged to everyone else, her mother, the producers, and the millions of viewers watching from home. Even at night, lying in her bed in the dark, she felt eyes on her. "My mind switched into performance mode automatically," she confessed. "Even when no one was watching, I'd catch myself thinking, if there were cameras here, how should I act?" The show had seeped into her soul. At the center of it all stood Kate, Not as a tired mom anymore, but as a full-blown showrunner. She decided everything, what moments were worth filming, which kid got the spotlight, and who got quietly pushed aside. The house wasn't just a set, it was her stage. According to Hannah, her mother stopped seeing 8 children and started seeing 8 characters. Each one was a storyline, an emotion, a marketable piece of the perfect family brand. What used to be a home filled with laughter had turned into a business where even their feelings had a production schedule. There were rare, fragile moments when the lights finally dimmed and the cameras were packed away. In those quiet stretches of night, Hannah would try to catch a glimpse of a real mother. Someone gentle, someone just human. But even then, sitting on the sofa with no audience and no crew, Kate never dropped her act. Her back stayed straight, her voice steady, her words polished like she was still giving an interview. She never really stepped out of the role of Kate Gosselin from TV anymore, Hannah recalled. And that also meant she wasn't a mom in the way I needed. Those words cut deep because they came from years of silent heartbreak, not just one bad day. This realization didn't strike all at once. It crept in slowly, piece by piece, through thousands of tiny moments that piled up like invisible weights. There were conversations that ended mid-sentence because the crew is coming. There were hugs she never got because her mother would say, "Save it for the cameras." Real tears were often wiped away with a cold reminder, "That doesn't match the tone of this episode." Over time, those little moments taught Hannah a painful truth she couldn't ignore. "My mother didn't love us the way a normal mother does," she said quietly. "She loved money. She loved the spotlight. She loved being praised by America. All the suffocating control, the strict daily routines, the emotional scripts taped by the bed. None of that," Hannah said.
I wouldn't really say surprised, but there's times that people disagree, but I realized at the end, it's just all out of love. They have like a very good, strong bond.
Was even the darkest part of her story, because the real nightmare began the day one of her brothers, Colin, suddenly vanished. One morning, his chair at breakfast was empty, his laughter gone from the house, and his name became forbidden. That day, Colin didn't show up for breakfast, and we weren't allowed to ask why, Hannah revealed. Her voice trembled, remembering it. Just that one sentence sends chills down the spine. The cameras rolled as if nothing had changed. But for the quietest daughter in the Gosselin family, the silence that replaced her brother's voice was louder than any audience applause could ever be. The truth Hannah finally shared tore apart the glossy image of America's once-beloved perfect family of 8. One morning, everything changed. Her younger brother, Colin, was just gone. No one said a word, no one gave a reason, and no one was allowed to ask. That day at breakfast, his chair sat empty, his plate untouched, and his name hung heavy in the air like a ghost that everyone pretended not to see. The silence was terrifying, thick and unnatural. The children, who had spent years under the glow of studio lights, started whispering to each other in secret, "Where's Colin?" But every time they did, the answer was always the same: silence. They learned quickly that questions brought consequences. So they stopped asking. They kept their heads down and followed the script like nothing had changed, even though everything had. No one could understand what had happened. Colin wasn't a troublemaker. He hadn't done anything wrong. Yet somehow, overnight, he was gone, removed from the show and from their daily lives. Soon, Hannah noticed small but painful changes. Colin ate his meals separately, lived in a different room, and eventually stopped appearing in front of the cameras altogether. It was as if someone had quietly erased him from the picture. "We weren't allowed to question it," Hannah said, her voice heavy with old fear. Something was very wrong. But in that house, questions were forbidden. So the kids did what they'd been trained to do. They performed. They laughed, smiled, and followed the lines given to them, pretending not to notice the growing emptiness where their brother used to be. Days turned into months, and still no one offered any explanation. The silence around Colin's disappearance became part of their routine, just another rule in the script that controlled their lives. Hannah described it as living in a constant state of confusion and helplessness, knowing deep down something awful was happening, but being powerless to speak. The Gosselin home, once shown to millions as a place of laughter and love, had turned into something else entirely, a quiet battlefield where the fight wasn't loud or violent. It was hidden behind perfect smiles and practiced lines. When Colin was suddenly sent away to a treatment facility without even a chance for a goodbye, it shattered whatever was left of the family's peace. The remaining children could feel it instantly. Their world was falling apart, not because of one single event, but because of countless small changes that crept in quietly, tearing at the edges of their bond. Each decision made above their heads cast a longer and darker shadow over their lives. The love and warmth that once filled their home slowly disappeared. In its place grew something colder, distance, confusion, and mistrust. It wasn't just about losing Colin. It was the moment the entire family began to split. No one had the power to pick sides, but everyone could sense the tension, like a quiet storm brewing behind every smile. From that silence rose what Hannah later called a family war. It wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet, emotional, and deeply painful. The once close-knit family began to divide into 3 factions, each driven by its own beliefs and loyalties. The first faction was Kate and the children who remained loyal to her. They believed her version of the story, that everything she did was for the good of the family. They clung to that image, trusting her completely, convinced she was the strong, devoted mother the public adored on TV. For those kids, the illusion still held. They saw her as the woman America praised, the one who kept everything together when it looked like it was all falling apart. But for Hannah, that belief felt hollow, a mask, not the truth. She said, "My mother didn't love us like a normal mom. She loved the brand. She loved the fame that came with it. We were the ones who gave her that fame." Those words revealed everything Hannah had come to understand, that behind every TV smile and every staged family moment was something far more heartbreaking. A mother devoted not to her children, but to the image they created for her. As Hannah got older, she began to see the deeper layers of the chaos her family had become. There wasn't just one story playing out. There were sides forming, and each one carried its own truth. The second faction was led by Jon, Hannah's father. After his marriage to Kate completely crumbled, Jon refused to disappear quietly. He became a father on a mission, determined to uncover what had really happened to Colin. He couldn't stand watching his children suffer in silence while the cameras kept rolling. So he started digging, asking questions that no one else dared to ask. But his fight wasn't easy. Hannah said it often felt like her dad was battling something much bigger than himself. A system, a spotlight, maybe even the image of Kate the supermom that America still believed in. Every step he took seemed to push him further away from the family he was trying to save. The search for Colin turned into a lonely war. One man trying to protect his son from a machine too powerful to break. Then there were the twins, Mady and Cara, the ones stuck right in the middle. For them, the family's conflicts were like an emotional maze, too complicated to untangle and too painful to face. They couldn't take sides because both sides carried pieces of the truth. What they wanted most wasn't fame or answers, they just wanted peace. But peace never came. So they learned to stay quiet, to stand on the sidelines, hoping that somehow the storm would pass without tearing them apart completely. And through it all, Hannah was caught between 2 worlds. She longed for the days when the family still felt whole, when laughter filled the house for real. Not for the cameras, but that version of life was gone. What remained was fear, confusion, and heartbreak. "I miss my brother," Hannah confessed softly, "but I feared my mother." Those words showed exactly how trapped she felt, stuck in a home that wasn't really a home anymore. Just a set she desperately wanted to escape.
Hannah said the real struggle wasn't just around her, it was inside her mind. Every day felt like a psychological war she had to fight alone. No one in the family could help her escape because they were all trapped in the same story, playing roles written for them. But even that, Hannah later realized, was just the surface of something much darker.
The truth was that the Kate Gosselin the world saw on television, the smiling, tireless supermom adored by millions, and the Kate Gosselin at home were 2 entirely different people. When the cameras stopped rolling, the version that America loved disappeared. Away from the spotlight, Kate became someone else completely, someone harder, colder, and consumed by control. She wasn't just a mom anymore, Hannah said quietly. She was running a production, a business, and everyone in it, including us, was just a character performing for her. That chilling statement revealed more than any headline ever could. Then came the line that stunned people across the country. She lives to be noticed, not to be a mother. It was simple, but it exposed a truth most people had never dared to consider about the woman they once idolized. The same woman who had been praised as America's mom was, behind closed doors, someone completely different, someone so lost in her image that she couldn't be real anymore, not even with her own kids. On television, Kate always appeared radiant, disciplined, and perfectly composed. She smiled, she hugged her children, and she played the part of the devoted parent flawlessly. Viewers believed every moment, convinced they were watching genuine love and family unity. But according to Hannah, those perfect moments were carefully curated illusions, polished scenes that hid the tension, exhaustion, and obsession beneath them. No matter how beautiful those images looked, Hannah explained, they never reflected what was really happening inside our home. Behind every cheerful episode was a family walking on eggshells, pretending everything was fine just to keep the brand alive. In real life, Kate wasn't the radiant, patient mother millions saw on TV. She was exhausted, tense, and constantly under pressure. Instead of spending real, heartfelt moments with her children, she became someone who only cared about how everything looked on camera. Every hug, every smile, every soft word had to be captured for the show, for the episodes, the YouTube videos, the bonus DVDs, anything that could keep the spotlight shining. But when the cameras stopped rolling, the warmth disappeared too. The loving mom her children hoped to see after filming simply didn't exist once the lights went out. Hannah revealed there was even a rule. No hugging when the cameras are off. Every display of affection had to happen on film, never in private. That's how controlled their lives had become. Every reaction was planned. Their laughter, their playtime, even their emotions were shaped to fit a script. Nothing felt natural anymore. The kids weren't just living, they were performing. To maintain that perfect family image America adored, their feelings had to match the storyline, not the truth. One of the things Hannah said she could no longer bear was watching her mother trade their real emotional connection for fame and applause. Kate always claimed her family came first, that her kids were her world. But behind that polished statement was a completely different reality. She forced us to film extra videos for YouTube, even on our days off, Hannah said. My mother never truly spent time with us. Everything she did was for work, for money, for attention. That confession broke the illusion wide open. The Gosselin kids began to see through the act. Quietly, they started to resist. It wasn't loud rebellion, it was subtle defiance, pulling away during filming, refusing to smile on cue, or retreating to their rooms just to breathe away from the cameras. Hannah described it as their only way to take back a piece of themselves, to feel human again in a house that had turned into a never-ending production set. Some of the kids eventually started showing defiance, refusing to fit into the perfect mold their mother had created for the cameras. They didn't want to fake smiles or act out scripted moments anymore. But the second Kate noticed that resistance, she shut it down fast. The children who didn't match her TV-perfect image were quietly isolated, treated differently from the rest. Kate could pour on the affection in front of the cameras, smiling, hugging, speaking sweetly. But the moment the lights went off, that warmth vanished. Off camera, the same kids who looked so loved on screen were suddenly met with cold criticism and manipulation. It wasn't love, Hannah said. It was control. It was all about image. Even the production crew began to notice the cracks in the illusion. Whispers spread among them. The person on TV isn't the same person we work with. Over time, that quiet talk turned into realization. The world had been watching a character, not the real Kate Gosselin. On screen, she was graceful, composed, and nurturing, a supermom who seemed to have it all together. But the minute the cameras stopped, Her personality shifted completely. She became rigid, anxious, and obsessed with maintaining the version of herself that the audience adored. This obsession with her public image didn't just affect her kids. It consumed every part of her life. And that same obsession soon led to one of the most controversial decisions she would ever make. It blurred the lines between her personal life and the show that defined her. During the many seasons of filming, Kate grew close to the family's longtime bodyguard, Steve Neild. What started as a professional relationship slowly turned into something far more personal, an emotional affair that spread whispers across tabloids and eventually tore the family apart. But the most chilling part? Hannah claimed that even as her mother's world started to crumble, Kate couldn't see the damage she was causing. She wasn't just losing her family's happiness, she was trading it for the spotlight she refused to live without. She created deep emotional wounds in her own children, Hannah said. The biggest scandal of my mother's life is something no one on TV ever saw. Behind the glowing cameras and the image of a perfect family, there was heartbreak hidden in plain sight. The world saw a cheerful mother raising 8 beautiful kids, but behind that picture was something far darker. Kate Gosselin didn't just trade family love for fame. She gave up everything that truly mattered while chasing a spotlight she thought would never fade. But fame doesn't protect the truth forever. That same spotlight that made her famous eventually blurred reality, twisting everything until the image she built began to crack apart. The perfect family America adored, the smiling kids, the organized chaos, the strong, caring mom. All of it turned out to be an act. The wonderful mother, Hannah said, was just a performance, a mask to hide the truth. Behind that mask was someone desperate for approval, addicted to attention and blinded by the illusion of control. And that illusion cost her everything. But what shocked people most was what came next. Hannah revealed, Kate didn't just change our family, she changed herself. And all because of one man. Those words opened the door to the darkest, most secret part of the Gosselin story. For years, fans had seen Kate's loyal bodyguard, Steve Neild, by her side. Always quiet, always professional, always there. To the public, he was just a dependable protector, someone who kept the family safe while cameras followed them everywhere. But to Hannah, he became something else entirely, a silent shadow in their lives. He was cold, she said, but powerful in ways that no one saw. What started as professional trust slowly turned into emotional entanglement, something hidden, something that changed everything inside their home. It was no longer just about filming a family show. It was about keeping secrets that could destroy the entire image that made them famous. But to Hannah, Steve Neild wasn't just a bodyguard, he was a controller. His presence changed everything in their home. Once he entered their lives, Kate's entire personality shifted. She became stricter, colder, and more obsessed with money and image than ever before. The loving mother that used to exist slowly disappeared, replaced by a woman who seemed to care more about protecting her brand than protecting her kids. Rumors of an affair between Kate and Steve Neild eventually hit the headlines, shocking fans everywhere. But just like every other controversy surrounding the family, the story was quickly denied. Kate insisted again and again that their relationship was strictly professional. Still, Hannah said she didn't need anyone to confirm it. She could feel the change in her mother long before the world noticed. There was something different about her, Hannah said.
My relationship with my mom is pretty stable. Like, we text each other and call each other on, an average basis.
My mother wasn't my mother anymore. She became someone else entirely. That realization left her feeling like a stranger in her own family. The warmth was gone, replaced by tension and quiet fear. It wasn't the same home anymore. It felt like a business headquarters with cameras and emotional scripts instead of love. But the biggest shock came when Hannah stumbled upon something she was never meant to see. One day, while no one was watching, she opened her mother's notebook, expecting maybe a journal or some personal reflections. What she found instead froze her. It wasn't a diary about her children's lives or milestones. It was a brand management log. Between scheduling notes and production plans, there were chilling lines scribbled in the margins. The kids must create the appearance of love. Colin negatively affects the family's image. Do not let them ruin the brand. Those words hit Hannah harder than anything else. It was the moment she realized their lives weren't being lived. They were being marketed. Her family wasn't a family anymore. It was a business empire built on pretending to be one. Those words in her mother's notebook left Hannah completely stunned. She couldn't believe what she was reading. How could a mother write things like that about her own children? How could anyone call it love when the kids were treated as tools to protect a brand, not as people to be loved? The realization hit her hard. What the world thought was a story of motherhood was actually a story of manipulation. As Hannah got older, she began to piece together what had really been happening. She came to believe that Steve Neild wasn't just a bodyguard. He was the force quietly guiding everything from behind the scenes. He was always whispering in my mother's ear, she said, telling her how to control her image, how to make the children obey, how to keep the cameras rolling. It was in those moments Hannah realized it wasn't only Kate shaping their lives, it was both of them. Every major choice, every uncomfortable decision seemed to have Steve's invisible influence wrapped around it. He wasn't just protecting Kate, he was directing her. But the most haunting part, Hannah said, came after Steve entered the picture. That's when her younger brother Colin started to disappear, not just from the show, but from the family itself. Colin wasn't a bad kid. He wasn't rebellious or disrespectful. He just wanted his mom's attention and affection. But in a world where image mattered more than emotion, Colin didn't fit the version of the family that Kate wanted to present to America. According to Hannah, the painful decisions that cut Colin out weren't Kate's alone. They were heavily influenced by Steve, who, as she saw it, controlled nearly everything behind the curtain. Even their father, Jon Gosselin, would later claim publicly that Kate and Steve had carried on a hidden romantic relationship that lasted for 17 years, a connection that blurred every boundary between business and family. As Hannah matured, the puzzle pieces finally started to fall into place. She began to understand why her parents' marriage had crumbled, why the family had fractured, and why everything that once felt real had been replaced by a show built on secrets, control, and illusion. When Hannah came across the line in her mother's notebook, "Don't let the kids ruin the career," it felt like a knife to the heart. That single sentence explained everything about why the Gosselin family had fallen apart. Her mother hadn't just lost her family's love. She had lost loyalty to her own children, the very people she had built her fame on. "I grew up and realized family was never her priority," Hannah said. "We were just tools." Those words carried the weight of years of silence and pain. But they weren't just a conclusion to her story. They were a warning to the world about the price of fame and the cost of chasing the spotlight too far. Hannah's story shows what happens when the desire for attention becomes stronger than the love meant to hold a family together. It's the story of how a home filled with laughter turned into a studio filled with pressure and control. Kate's dream of being America's favorite mom came true, but it came at the cost of everything real. Still, despite all the scars, Hannah hasn't stopped trying to heal. She continues to move forward piece by piece, trying to make sense of the years she lost to the cameras. She's no longer running from her past. She's learning to understand it. But one question still lingers in her heart and in the minds of everyone who hears her story. How far would a mother go to keep the spotlight? Today, Hannah is finally free, but her freedom came with a price. "What is the price of truth?" she asked. After years of living in the shadow of reality TV, she finally stepped into a different kind of light. Not the spotlight of fame, but the light of truth and real life. She doesn't want applause or attention. She just wants peace, authenticity, and a sense of normalcy that fame had stolen from her. The hardest part, Hannah admitted, wasn't my mom's strictness or the cameras. It was realizing that no one in our family knew how to love normally anymore. That heartbreaking confession sums up what fame truly cost. Not just privacy, but the ability to feel real love at all. After spending so many years living under the control of cameras and the weight of her family's brand, Hannah realized that love no longer felt natural. Every smile, every gesture, every tear had been molded to fit the perfect image her mother wanted the world to see. Genuine affection had been replaced by performance. It wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about appearance. Only when she finally stepped out of that shadow did Hannah begin to understand just how much she had lost. She couldn't even remember what real love felt like. Her freedom didn't come easily. It came with a heavy price. To truly reclaim herself, she had to walk away from the person who had shaped her entire life, her mother. But the separation didn't stop there. It fractured everything. The entire family began to unravel. The siblings who had once been inseparable slowly drifted apart, each one finding their own way through the chaos. What used to be a tight bond of 8 brothers and sisters became scattered memories of what once was. Hannah's recollection of family turned into broken puzzle pieces, pieces that would never fit together again, no matter how hard she tried. Every crack in their connection was a reminder of the years they had spent performing instead of living. "We weren't a family anymore," she said softly. "We were fragments." And then came the moment that changed everything again, when Colin spoke out. When her brother finally shared his truth, the world began to see what Hannah had been living through all along. It was then she realized her own mission wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming what was left. "When Colin spoke out," she said, "I understood that I didn't want to hurt my mother. I wanted to save the pieces of myself and what was left of our family." Those words marked a turning point for her. They weren't just a confession. They were liberation. Now, standing between her youth and the scars left by a childhood stolen by the spotlight, Hannah continues to face the painful truth her family once hid. She's no longer running from it. She's standing in it, determined to find healing in the ruins of what fame once destroyed. Hannah is slowly rebuilding the pieces of her life, the ones the cameras never cared to show. She's learning to trust again, to find peace, and to finally live as herself, not as the character created for America's entertainment. No more scripts, no more staged emotions. Just Hannah trying to rediscover what it means to be real. She's no longer Hannah from Jon and Kate Plus 8. She's simply Hannah Gosselin, the girl behind the lights, behind the headlines, behind the pain. Yet one haunting question still lingers in her heart. Can she ever forgive her mother? Can the deep wounds, the emotional cracks that fame carved into their family ever truly heal? Every time she thinks about the past, about her mother, the memories resurface like old scars that never fade. Hannah admits that forgiveness doesn't come easy. It's something she's still trying to understand. Because how do you forgive someone who turned your childhood into contempt? How do you forgive a parent who traded real love for public praise? These are the questions that keep her awake, the ones that remind her that this story, her story, will always be an unhealed fracture in the history of the Gosselin family. And that's the question Hannah leaves hanging in the air for all of us. After everything that's been exposed, after every secret, every truth, can the Gosselin family ever be whole again? When the cameras are finally gone and the spotlights fade for good, can they become a real family? Can they learn to love without performing? Can they heal without pretending? For now, Hannah is still walking that road toward healing. Each day, she steps a little further away from the shadows of fame and a little closer to the light of self-acceptance. But the question remains open, not just for her, but for anyone who's watched her story unfold. What would a mother be willing to sacrifice to keep the spotlight? So the story of the Gosselin family, its secrets, its heartbreak, its hidden truth, finally comes to light. From the glittering spotlight to the silent darkness, from joyful moments on TV to the pain behind the scenes, this has been a journey few could ever imagine. Can this family truly heal, or will they remain forever as broken pieces of a story that can't be put back together? Hannah has reclaimed her freedom, but the price of truth will always linger. And now it's your turn. What does this story make you think about the choice between family and fame? If this story left you shocked, moved, or questioning the cost of celebrity life, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. There are more untold stories, more secrets, more truth, and more emotional journeys waiting to be uncovered.